Welcome to a deep dive. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something really fascinating. It's described in our source material as an ancient Indian power meal.
That's right. We've got this whole package of info here focusing on one specific, very traditional pairing, Ragi Mudde with mutton curry.
Yeah, and the source material, it really goes deep, doesn't it? History, ingredients, how it's actually made, and what feels really significant, a detailed nutritional breakdown. So our mission today is basically to unpack all of that. We want to figure out what makes this dish so, traditionally valued and see how that ancient wisdom holds up against, well, modern nutritional science.
That's a great comparison.
I have to say, I'm already curious. This whole idea of an ancient power meal, it sounds intriguing. So what exactly are Ragi Mudde and mutton curry?
Okay, so Ragi Mudde, think of it as a dense cooked ball of dough. It's made from ragi, which is finger millet flour.
Finger millet, okay.
And the mutton curry, well, that's a rich, slow-cooked stew, usually bone-in goat or lamb, and it's heavily seasoned with a whole range of spices.
And our sources say this specific combo, Ragi Mudde and mutton curry, it's from particular regions in India.
Yeah, they trace it back mostly to traditional diets in Karnataka and Andhra. Seems like a real staple there, historically.
Okay, Ragi Mudde, this millet dough, and the curry. Now, the source mentions a traditional purpose for eating this. What's that?
Well, the material we have really emphasizes two main things. Building physical strength, for energy and endurance.
Makes sense.
And, quite interestingly, for body cooling.
Cooling, that's not a combo you hear much about in modern Western nutrition, is it? Strength and cooling?
Not really, no. It seems it was the kind of meal people relied on for sustained energy, resilience, especially maybe in hotter climates or if you were doing demanding physical work.
Right. Okay. That makes a bit more sense contextually. So let's look at the actual components. The source gives us the key ingredients and sort of a high-level idea of how it's made.
Sure. For the Ragi Mudde, it's almost surprisingly simple. You've got ragi flour, water, and just a touch of ghee.
Ghee, okay, clarified butter.
Exactly. You basically bring water to a boil, then you gradually add the flour, but you have to stir it really vigorously, to stop lumps forming.
Ah, the technique.
Right. Cook it down till it's this thick, sort of pliable mass, stir in a bit of ghee right at the end, and then you quickly shape it into balls while it's still hot.
That simplicity is pretty striking, isn't it? Just millet, water, ghee.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff, apparently.
What about curry? That sounds more complex.
Oh, it is. That's where all the layered flavor comes from. You start with ghee again, and the source mentions ghee consistently.
Yeah, I noticed that.
You heat that up, temper some whole spices, think cloves, cinnamon sticks, cardamom pods. Get that aroma going.
Mm-hmm.
Then you saute your aromatics, onions, ginger garlic paste. After that, add tomatoes, and then the ground spices turmeric, chili powder, coriander, garam masala. The usual suspects for a good curry.
A lot of spices. Definitely. Then the bone-in mutton goes in. You brown that, add water, and then it's usually pressure cooked. That gets it incredibly tender.
Pressure cooker. Makes sense for mutton.
Yeah. Saves a lot of time and makes it fall off the bone.
Yeah.
Then maybe a final seasoning check, perhaps a garnish, and it's done.
Okay. And using ghee as the main fat, that feels quite different from how many people cook today with all the different vegetable oils. The sources seem to really zero in on the benefits of the individual parts here. This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Absolutely. Let's break down what the source material highlights for these key ingredients. So ragi, the finger millet,
Yeah.
it's noted for being exceptionally rich in calcium.
Yeah.
In fact, the source actually states it has more calcium than milk.
Whoa, hang on. More calcium than milk. Seriously.
That's what the material claims, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a statement. It's also a great source of iron and dietary fiber.
Yeah.
And traditionally, it was valued for that body cooling effect we mentioned. But looking at it now, the benefits line up with things like supporting gut health, thanks to the fiber and obviously bone strength and blood health from the calcium and iron.
That calcium point is, wow. That's a real knowledge nugget. Does the source say how much more, or just that it is?
It focuses more on that comparative statement and then gives the amount per serving in the final dish breakdown, which we'll get to. But yeah, the claim itself is pretty bold.
Definitely. Okay, so that's Ragi. What about the mutton?
Well, as you'd probably expect, it's a really dense source of high-quality protein. The source links this directly to muscle building, providing sustained energy.
Standard protein benefits, yeah.
Right. But it also mentions the iron content, good for blood health. Plus, B vitamins important for energy, metabolism, nerve function, zinc too. and even amino acids that apparently support collagen production.
Collagen from mutton. Okay.
That's what the source suggests, yeah.
Yeah.
Certain amino acids.
So you've got this mineral and fiber powerhouse from the ragi, and then the protein powerhouse from the mutton. What about ghee? You mentioned the source keeps bringing it up.
Yeah, ghee isn't just treated as cooking fat here. The source highlights potential benefits, like supporting the gut lining, maybe related to butyrate. The source doesn't specify the mechanism, but mentions gut support.
Interesting.
And also contributing to collagen production in the body. Traditionally, it's also seen as helping balance hormones. But the point the source really calls out, and this feels key,
What's that?
is that the fat in this meal comes only from the ghee and the mutton itself,
Yeah.
meaning there's a complete absence of industrial seed oils.
Ah, right. That point about avoiding seed oils, it's definitely framed as a major plus in the source material we have.
Okay, what about all those spices? There were quite a few. Turmeric, cinnamon, cumin.
Right, exactly. And the source suggests they're not just there for taste. Turmeric, especially paired with black pepper, it notes, might help activate the body's natural healing or, anti-inflammatory processes.
Yeah, the crewman activation thing. Precisely. Then cinnamon is highlighted for potentially helping balance blood sugar levels. And cumin for supporting digestion. It really paints this picture where almost every single ingredient has a specific function beyond just flavor.
It sounds less like just a recipe and more like a deliberately constructed system, everything working together.
That's a good way to put it. A system.
And when you do put it all together, the nutritional profile, according to the source, is, well, it's pretty impressive.
It really is. Let's look at the numbers provided for one serving one Ragi Mudde ball with a standard portion of the mutton curry. The source details roughly. Total calories around 590 kilcal.
Okay, decent meal size.
Yep. Protein. Very substantial, 42 grams.
42. Wow.
Yeah. Then carbs, about 50 grams, but it specifically describes these as complex and fiber-rich carbs from the millet.
Right, not empty carbs.
Exactly. Fat is around 28 grams, and again, the source stresses this is from healthy fats ghee, the mutton with no seed oils involved. Fiber is about 5 grams. Then the minerals. Iron, roughly 8.7 milligrams, which the source notes is about 60% of typical daily needs.
60% from one meal, that's significant.
Very. And calcium, around 300 milligrams. That's approximately 50% of typical daily needs, according to the source.
Half your calcium, half your iron, and 42 grams of protein. That is genuinely a power meal by modern standards. The source mentioned something about that protein level meeting needs for teenagers.
Yeah, it makes a comment like it meets around 85% of a teen's daily protein needs, just to give context.
Yeah.
But like you said, even for any active adult, hitting 42 grams of protein in one go is pretty efficient.
Absolutely. It's a major building block right there.
And beyond just those macros and key minerals, the source material points out there's a wealth of B vitamins, zinc, and various antioxidants coming from that whole mix of ingredients, the mutton, the spices, the millet.
Right.
So it summarizes the overall benefits of the combined dish like this. It has a low glycemic index.
Meaning slow energy release, no sugar crash.
Yeah. Exactly. It's considered anti-inflammatory, gut-friendly,
Right.
And it supports collagen production.
Wow. Okay. So what's the big picture here? When we step back and look at this traditional meal, designed, like you said, centuries ago for strength and weirdly cooling, it lines up incredibly well with what modern nutrition values, doesn't it?
It really does. It's uncanny almost.
You've got the high protein, the complex carbs, the healthy fats, essential minerals like iron and calcium in large amounts, fiber, and then these extra benefits like being anti-inflammatory and good for the gut.
Yeah.
It feels like this ancient wisdom sort of intuitively landed on something that modern science is now validating point by point.
That's precisely how the source material presents it, as a really powerful example where traditional Indian food practices weren't just about taste or survival. They seem deeply rooted in functional nutrition, creating a complete meal system that, checks a lot of the boxes we look for today for metabolic health, physical support, the whole package.
It wasn't just folklore, it was functional. I like that.
Yeah, functional.
It really makes you pause, doesn't it? It makes you think about the level of kind of embedded knowledge in traditional diets all over the world. It's this fascinating mix of history, culture, and, well, verifiable nutrition.
And this deep dive into Ragi Mudde and mutton curry is just such a perfect illustration of that. It kind of encourages us, maybe, to look at these older food traditions, not just as, historical curiosities, but as potential treasure troves of valuable knowledge for our health today.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive, the key takeaway seems pretty clear. This traditional Indian dish, Ragi Mudde with mutton curry, it's way more than just, comfort food. It's a potent, science-backed nutritional package, a real testament to the power and the enduring value you can find in ancient food wisdom.
Definitely. And it prompts a really interesting question for everyone listening, I think. How many other ancient power meals might be out there, hidden in plain sight within different cultures, different traditions, just waiting for us to rediscover them and appreciate their sort of inherent nutritional intelligence?
Exactly. How does looking at a dish like this, built on simple, whole ingredients, traditional techniques, and this deep, almost intuitive wisdom, how does that change your perspective on what we call superfoods today, or what truly balanced eating looks like in our modern world? Just something to chew on after our deep dive.